Dorothy Anne Distelhurst disappeared when she was walking home from school on the 19th of September of 1934. This would be the last day any of her family members or anybody in the community would see her alive. Hey everybody, what's up and welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Liz, and today we're going to be discussing the disappearance, abduction, and murder of Dorothy Anne Distelhurst. I had never heard of this case until I started looking up old unsolved abductions and murders, and I found this one, and I felt it would only be right to talk about Dorothy Anne's murder and how it is still unsolved to this day. So on the 19th of September 1934, this was a normal Wednesday for the Distelhurst family. So Edgar and Ruby are Dorothy Anne's parents, and Edgar went to work at the publishing house that he worked at, and his wife Ruby had seen Dorothy Anne off to school. Dorothy Anne was last seeing a blue and white checkered dress, carrying her school books, and she was carrying her pink lunchbox as well. So that day was just like any other ordinary day. But to their ultimate dismay, this would be the last time that she would be seen alive by her family. Dorothy Anne Distelhurst went missing when she was walking home from school in East Nashville, Tennessee. She went missing somewhere between school and home. And when Dorothy was not home on time, Ruby, her mom, called the cops, and this is when the initial search began, but nothing was found. The only thing that was arising was their fear and the dread of what may have happened to Dorothy Anne, and this really preyed on everybody's mind. During this time as well in society in the 1930s, this is the Great Depression, and there was also things called snatch rackets happening, which is kind of similar to what happened with the Charles Lindbergh Jr. case, or the Charles Lindbergh case, when his son was abducted and ransom was being asked for. So this is something that mobsters would do in order to lure who they were trying to get money from and successfully get ransom. Sometimes the people that were abducted were released, but there was some times where these people were taken more than once. Sometimes they were hurt and sometimes they weren't. Now, the Distelhurst family was not wealthy by any means, but the idea of kidnapping was not dismissed by them or by the local authorities. Her disappearance made national headlines to the point that it brought her older brother Alfred back home to Tennessee. He had left home before they moved to Tennessee, and he returned to help with finding her. The ransom notes as well that came in also made national news. One demanded $175,000 or Dorothy Anne would be blinded by acid. Remember this key detail because it will come up later. Another was for $5,000. There was a variety and very sporadic amount of different money that was wanted in each of these ransom letters and notes. It kind of concluded that all of these notes were written to the family or to the authorities, and when they received them, they automatically knew it was from scam artists or from opportunists that could make money off of Dorothy Anne's disappearance. So police also would start to question different sex offenders in regards to Dorothy Anne, because it is possible that she could have been abducted and sexually assaulted by a predator, a known predator in the area, but there was no leads that came from this either. They also started gathering volunteers to start a broader search for her, but soon these searches that happened led to nothing and the family was completely distraught. But their heartache would only grow larger. In November of 1934, Edgar Distelhurst went to New York. He went there to meet a man named Alfred Otto Wagner. And Wagner was an author of the $5,000 ransom note. And Edgar knew it was a fake, but he went and met with him anyway. And it was easily determined that Wagner was a fraud and that he would eventually be tried on extortion charges. Now, the reason I bring this up is because while he was in New York, Edgar received the news that Dorothy was found, but he wasn't told whether or not she was dead or alive. So, on the 13th of November of 1934, there's two employees of the Davidson County Tuberculosis Hospital, and they're digging up specific flower beds because they were told that they needed to revise the landscaping. So when they started digging up this one in particular, they got about 2 inches down and discovered the decomposed body of a little girl. Now, this flower bed was shielded by shrubbery, so it wasn't easily seen. So this would be the most opportunistic place to inter a body if you were trying to dispose of it. Now, this hospital is in Inglewood, which is north of East Nashville. Also, what is also good to know is that Dorothy Ann's books, her pink lunchbox, and her blue and white checker dress was found about 3 yards away from where this body was discovered. Now, during this autopsy that was performed on this body, it was determined that the left side of her skull was bludgeoned by a hammer or something like the object, which was blunt force trauma. That was her cause of death. Her face was also disfigured by what was later determined to be acid. So, like I said, remember this key detail. Dorothy Anne had acid thrown in her face and she was disfigured. And this was determined by the medical examiner Herman Spitz, who officially conducted her autopsy. There was also a rag stuffed in her mouth, and it is possibly a theory that her body was stored somewhere for a period of time before she was buried in the flower bed at the tuberculosis hospital. That is another possible theory. There was no sign of rape on her body whatsoever, so it was concluded that she was not sexually assaulted. But after the ME examined her teeth and matched the dental records of Dorothy Anne, they concluded that this body was that of Dorothy Anne Distelhurst. So newspapers reported that the hunt for whoever killed Dorothy Anne was relentless, but there was no avail. There was not a witness, there was no clues, there was no leads. They hit a wall. And now about a week after Dorothy was found, they discovered an iron spike that was about 25 feet from where Dorothy Ann's body was found. And they determined that this possibly could be the murder weapon. And that was after they found hair that was entangled on it. There are theories about who did this, but what type of crime this was and why they chose Dorothy in particular. Now, to this day, like I said, her murder is unsolved, and this is a cold case. Her killer has never been identified. There is no motive that's ever been established, and the case has gone cold. What are your thoughts on the murder of Dorothy Anne Distelhurst? Leave them in the comments down below. I would love to know what you have to say or what you think about her murder. I personally think that is somebody that is close to the Distelhurst family that abducted and killed Dorothy Anne. Maybe it was part of revenge, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just some random person that chose Dorothy Anne on a whim. But hopefully her murder will eventually be solved. Now, it has been 88 years since she has died. So, wow, 88 years since this crime occurred, and nothing has come of it. But hopefully with time, something will. Now, like I said before, don't forget to leave in the comments down below what you think about this true crime case. I would love to know. Leave any other true crime cases you want me to cover in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn your bell notification on all. That way you know whenever I upload. And I'll see you guys in a brand new video.